Figuring out what makes a video game great means looking at what makes the best ones shine. Maybe it's all about the perfect combination of exciting gameplay, beautiful graphics, and a story that pulls you in and doesn't let go. In this video, we're going to talk about 25 10 out of 10 unforgettable games that have captured the hearts of players everywhere. Anyway, we've got a lot of fun and exciting games to talk about here. So let's get started off with number 35 and talk about Far Cry 3 and 5. The Far Cry series has always been a bit all over the place, not always sure what it wants to be. But when it gets something right, it really gets it right. And that's exactly the case with Far Cry 3 and 5. Both games dive headfirst into the madness and weight these stories can carry when they walk that fine line. Far Cry 3 is considered one of the best FPS games ever, and it's easy to see why. Huge open world, intense story, and that wild island setting. In Far Cry 3, you're fighting off pirates, but trust me, things get way weirder. Then there's the fifth installment, Far Cry 5, swapping the island for Montana, where you're up against a fanatical cult and its leader. However, both games throw you into absolute chaos, just in completely different ways. And next, over at number 34, we have Dying Light. Another Techland creation that used Dead Island for its foundations. Dying Light built on them with expertise and a sprinkle of individuality. When this game came out, it tried to blend two things together with relatively good success: zombies and parkour. This was a revolutionary game that became one of the great open-world journeys, and its weapon customization was a big hit as well. You're set in a city that is overrun with zombies. You have a mission from your superiors to do certain things within the city, and how you do those things at times is up to you, which includes using your incredible parkour skills to leap, bound, and climb just about everything in the city. Combat has been changed from the melee focus in Dead Island towards more gunplay, giving players a true action-adventure experience. The parkour is what the series is now known for, and oddly, the original hits a benchmark that the sequel couldn't quite reach. They're both fantastic, but the original has a little something special. And next at number 33 is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. The Assassin's Creed franchise has spanned countless games and featured various historical moments over its almost 20-year lifespan. And one of the more iconic installments fans might point towards is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. First released in 2013, this was the game a lot of pirate fans dreamed of. And it is the only game in the long-running series that gets everything perfect. With exciting ship battles, engaging missions, a strong story, and plenty of exploration, Black Flag perfectly ties everything together for an enjoyable experience. It's a game jam-packed with content, but it's not overwhelming like the later Assassin's Creed games. There's not really any other games releasing like these right now, so don't miss out on this one. Let's move on to number 32 and talk about Bloodborne. 6 years on from Demon's Souls, From Software had written themselves into a groove with their Souls formula. They decided to switch things up in 2015, swapping dragons and knights for spooky gothic vibes and strange monsters inspired by Lovecraft. This game shook things up with its dark, bloody world and a new take on combat. No more hiding behind shields, and instead of dodging all the time, players were encouraged to fight back aggressively. Of course, there will still require a certain level of patience and determination if you'd like to get past some enemies. Anyway, Bloodborne received tons of praise, with critics and gamers praising its tough enemies, deep combat, and amazing world. Some even say that it's one of the best video games of all time, which might be a slight stretch, but it's definitely one of the greatest horror games of all time. And next at number 31 is Divinity Original Sin 2. This game is hailed by many as one of the best action RPG games of the modern era, and it's easy to understand why. The game gives you a vast world to explore and a near infinite amount of options for you to choose from. You'll have multiple races you can be in terms of character, and play either solo or with friends in co-op mode. The turn-based combat is just as deep with over 200 skills to learn. Games like this one and Baldur's Gate 3 are huge indicators of how incredible games with turn-based combat can be. They inspire creativity and strategy on a whole different level, and are equally deserving of praise as two of the greatest storytelling role-playing games out there. Down at number 30, we have Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Nearly 10 years have passed since the original launch of this game, and it was the last installment of our beloved franchise Metal Gear Solid. Phantom Pain is still a masterpiece when it comes to stealth gameplay and storytelling. This Metal Gear Solid game gives you two big, open-world maps to really do whatever you want. This game has a mind-blowing amount of guns and tools. You can also customize them with different equipment to suit your playstyle. And when it comes to stealth, there are so many options here, even more than Snake Eater, and they're so fun to play around with. It's also easily the biggest entry in the Metal Gear franchise, and you can easily spend dozens of hours sneaking behind enemy lines and listening to Cold War chart-topping hits. I know this game has a few flaws and a slightly unfinished atmosphere, but it's totally worth checking out. Next over at number 29 is Detroit: Become Human. Made by Quantic Dream, Detroit: Become Human is one of many titles created by the team to be a thought-provoking experience. This game was written and directed by David Cage, who spent 2 years formulating the game's story. David Cage is an expert in writing fascinating, emotional stories and creating top-notch interactive decision story games. The game's beautiful visuals will impress anyone who loves cyberpunk, and its deep themes will hit you emotionally. The game focuses on 3 sentient androids and their adventure across Detroit in the year 2038. As you play, you'll make choices that shape a powerful story, and there are almost innumerable ways for the game to end. So try one path and then start over to try another. Anyway, this is one of the most fantastic cyberpunk games to sink into, if you're interested in exploring big questions about the future of humanity. Moving on to number 28, we have the Last of Us series. Naughty Dog really knows how to pull off an incredible cinematic video game experience. When The Last of Us was originally released on the PlayStation 3, it was such a mega hit that the developers were quick to bring out a remastered edition for the PlayStation 4. But one thing that Naughty Dog ensured with both the original version and the remastered version is that the action is top-notch. As you play Ellie and a certain other character, you'll have to brutally make your way from place to place, fighting off both humans and infected alike. Then The Last of Us 2 takes place several years after the events of the first game. Players take control of an older Ellie who is trying to build a normal life in a small town. However, a tragic event sets her on a difficult journey filled with challenges. Without giving away any spoilers, both games are definitely worth playing. And next at number 27 is Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 was already seen as one of the best modern JRPGs, but its reputation only got better with the release of Royal. It added an extra semester and a new palace to a game that was already packed with amazing content. You'll play as a student called Joker, the leader of a group called the Phantom Thieves. The relationship building in this game is the best in the genre, and the graphics, sound, and combat are just as fantastic. You can even start a romance with some of the people you meet if you want. It's the ultimate version of Persona 5 and the high point of the series so far. It was originally released exclusively on the PS3 and is now available on the PS5. Let's move on to number 26 and talk about Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 continues to see the light of day. 2 console generations later because it offers tons of content and never fails to entertain. The game was originally released more than 10 years ago and still shows no signs of slowing down. While the core narrative isn't as complex or exciting as Grand Theft Auto 4, its script still steals the show. The story also introduced the heist mechanic, which would go on to become a major portion of Grand Theft Auto Online. And with one next-gen upgrade already in place, things are only getting better with the upcoming improvements. Anyway, exploring Los Santos again as Michael, Franklin, and Trevor looks to be every bit as fun as it did back in 2013. With Grand Theft Auto 6 still on the horizon, there's no better time to revisit the game and enjoy the latest update. Next, over at number 25 is Rise of the Tomb Raider. This is the second installment in the Tomb Raider series reboot and is considered by many to be the standout entry into the franchise. The game got released in 2015 and it is one of the best action-adventure game you can try. The game definitely gives off an Uncharted vibe, as Laura sets off on a quest to uncover the legendary city. You'll explore ancient ruins, solve puzzles, and battle enemies in some of the most stunning environments you've ever come across. There are tons of enemies to take on, and you'll need to use both your weapons and the environment to gain the upper hand. The world building and scenery in this game are breathtaking, and the story feels like a thrilling action movie. Whether you're a longtime fan of Laura or just love a good adventure, this game is definitely worth adding to your gaming list. Next, over at number 24, we have Dishonored. It has been a while since we've had a new Dishonored game, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve a place on this list. Honestly, those 2 games were so good that people are still praising them today. Both Dishonored and its sequel are the very definition of satisfying. It is an FPS, but it has a lot of various weapons at your disposal. You can shoot or stab enemies while using very unique abilities to your advantage. The atmosphere is amazing, and the movement and possibilities you have are endless. It is a complete package, with several spin-off games and 2 main installments in the series. The 2 games have separate qualities, though the original has better and more interesting characters, but the second one has superior gameplay. Now, if they could just take the best of both games and give us a third one, that would be really awesome. Let's move on to number 23 and talk about Mafia Definitive Edition. Mafia Definitive Edition is a ground-up remake of the original 2002 PlayStation 2 game. Everything about this classic game has been rebuilt for modern consoles, and the results are excellent. Of course, games back then were a bit rough to enjoy visually today. Fortunately, Mafia was given a massive overhaul. It takes the original Mafia's strong story and gives it a modern twist, improving things like gunplay and vehicle handling. Likewise, this game is set in an open world, so you can drive around and explore the open world of Lost Heaven. However, since this game was originally released in 2002, there wasn't a ton for players to do within the city outside of missions. But even so, it's a visual masterpiece, and it looks and plays like a modern title release. Moving on to number 22, we have Titanfall 2. Here is a title that is so good that people are still begging for a third game in the line to be made. Unfortunately, since it's not as of yet, you'll have to enjoy Titanfall 2, not that this is a bad thing. This game has one of the best story I've ever experienced from an FPS game. But Titanfall 2 never gained the reputation and mainstream legacy it deserved. The game took everything the original title did and expanded upon it, making it legendary to gamers. The gameplay is super fun with different movement mechanics like wall running, sliding, and grappling. However, players still have the chance to play competitive online multiplayer modes that Titanfall is well known for. So, if you love fast-paced shooters full of style, you've got to give this game a try. And next, at number 21 is Mad Max. This is one of the most underrated video games of the past decade, but I think that this game is a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. Anyway, Mad Max is all about explosive action and well-designed open world that is a joy to explore. Just like in movies, vehicles play a huge part in the game. You can battle with them and upgrade by adding various weapons and armor. The melee combat mechanics are pretty much an Arkham clone, quite detailed and satisfying. Despite being nearly 10 years old, the game still looks beautiful. Usually games based around movies typically don't hit expectations fans place on them. Even so, Mad Max is a game you should definitely give a try. Down at number 20, we have Hollow Knight. It's taken decades for a game to come along and usurp Castlevania or Metroid at the top of the Metroidvania pile. But along comes a little indie team in South Australia called Team Cherry that toppled them with the wonderful Hollow Knight. The game might look super cute with its Flash-style characters, but underneath that, there's a surprisingly dark story that you really need to see for yourself. What really makes this game stand out is its stunning design, incredible sound and visuals, challenging but fair gameplay, and tons of awesome content to dig into. It all comes together to make this game a must-play. Adding to that, the game has expansive DLC content that gives you new music, additional story, more bosses to fight, and more. Anyway, Hollow Knight has lifted the bar to a level that may never be reached again. And there is also a sequel on the way called Silksong. Be sure to play this one, so you can fully enjoy what's coming next. Next, over at number 19, we have NieR Automata. NieR Automata is a pretty unique game, and it is one of the best RPGs released in the past few years. The game follows the adventures of 3 androids. They fight against these machines from another world to free Earth and humanity from their control. And it also features a vast, post-apocalyptic open world to explore, some platforming elements, and various RPG customization elements. However, understanding the full story of NieR Automata requires multiple playthroughs, each unlocking part of the story. And when you combine that with an incredible, fast-paced, action-packed gameplay, you'll see why so many have tried this game out. Moving on to number 18, we have a Plague Tale series. The predecessor of the recently released A Plague Tale Requiem was an absolute dream of a game, and it walked so the sequel could run. This series tells the story of Amicia and Hugo. The game is set in 14th century France, and everything is taken over by the Black Death. Players will go on a journey that includes stealth, survival, puzzle solving, and a little bit of combat. These games also look fantastic, and with its eerie and mysterious atmosphere, there is not another game on the market that expresses 14th century France quite as this does. There is no wonder that the first game was up for so many Game of the Year awards in 2019, and the sequel is even better. And next at number 17 is Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This action RPG is based on the mega-popular The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series. Middle-earth: Shadow of War is set after the events of The Hobbit, but before The Lord of the Rings. Fans of Tolkien's work will be very pleased with this open-world title. The original Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor lifted many elements from the Assassin's Creed franchise, and combat from the Batman Arkham series. However, it made for an incredible title when it was combined with a Middle-earth setting, unique gameplay mechanic known as the Nemesis system, and more. The sequel Shadow of War takes the formula even further, though it doesn't quite hit the mark as well. That said, it's still a fantastic game with an engaging story, making it a must-play for any Middle-earth fan or anyone who loves open-world games. Let's move on to number 16 and talk about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. As video game franchises go, Mass Effect is still up there with the best of the best. The original game is one of the third-person shooters that defined the genre on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 back in the day. This classic series first launched in 2007 with the original Mass Effect game. And the remastered collection includes the entire trilogy, with upgraded graphics that have been completely reworked for modern consoles. Now, instead of having different versions, the new Legendary Edition lets you play all the games in the way you like. The collection also has all the extra content that was released for each of the 3 games over the years. So if for some strange reason you didn't catch BioWare's Space Trilogy, now's the best time to jump in. Down at number 15, we have Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This sword-fighting game was From Software's next big hit after Dark Souls 3, and it was so popular that it made people forget about the trilogy for a while. Praised for being incredibly hard with expert-level gameplay, intimidating enemies, and insanely creative boss battles, plus the fact that you get to play as a ninja, this game truly had everything you could ask for. Sekiro offers a lot of unique gameplay mechanics, but it is very much a Souls game that is very, very hard. Some people even say that it is the hardest game from Software. There's no surprise that it is considered to be one of the best in the whole series of games from the developers, and it also won the Game of the Year for 2019 as well. Let's move on to number 14 and talk about Days Gone. Former PlayStation exclusive Days Gone made the leap over to PC in early 2021, following in the footsteps of Horizon Zero Dawn. This game doesn't get as much love as Horizon, but a big part of that is due to its slow burn of an opening. It takes Days Gone many hours to really kick it into high gear, and some people burn out in the opening act. But if you stick with it, there's plenty to enjoy in this gritty, post-apocalyptic open world. If you focus on the main story, you'll finish in about 50 hours. But How Long to Beat says it can take up to 100 hours if you explore everything and go after all the extras. Even if the story doesn't connect with everyone, players can still enjoy riding their bike through a stunning world while dodging zombie hordes. Moving on to number 13, we have Metro Exodus. The Metro series is one in a long line of post-apocalyptic titles, but Metro Exodus tries to put a spin on it by not just expanding your world, but showing you how long your journey takes you. Exodus was released in early 2019 on all major platforms to positive reception from critics, being hailed as a worthy successor to the previous 2 games. The game is not easy as you'll have to deal with creatures both natural and supernatural. As if that's not enough, the choices you make on your way will determine who in your team lives. And there are some cool weapons that can be customized and upgraded using scavenging materials you find. It's honestly one of the best-looking post-apocalyptic games ever. You don't have to have played the first 2, as Exodus recaps them both and tells its own contained story. If you're a fan of games with survival horror and stealth elements, you'll have a good time trying to survive this one. And next at number 12 is Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection. The Uncharted franchise is a massive one for Sony. Since the PlayStation 3, fans have been enjoying this franchise, and this series is by far one of the best collections of action-adventure games around. And the recently released Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection brings the 2 PS4 Uncharted games to the PS5 and PC in this remastered collection. The collection contains Uncharted 4 and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy in one package. The Legacy of Thieves collection was heralded as a perfect example of what a remastered collection should be. The best part is that anyone who already owns either of those games can get the upgraded collection for just $10. Both games bring story, gameplay, and intensity to the mix, so you won't lose by buying and enjoying these games. Next, over at number 11, we have The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It is one of those games that doesn't need much of an introduction. Most seasoned gamers have probably done multiple playthroughs by now. This is still one of the most enjoyable and unbelievably vast worlds to explore. The visuals are beautiful. The combat is fun, and there's so much to do, like tons of quests. Loads of weapons to find and plenty of spells to learn. The world is packed with dragons, skeletons, trolls, and witches roaming the land. You can also upgrade your character and build them into a powerful warrior while enjoying all the little details that make this game feel fresh, even after hours of play. This fantasy open-world game is so good, it's arguably the reason that Bethesda hasn't released The Elder Scrolls 6 yet. And honestly, if that doesn't make it worth playing, nothing will. Down at number 10, we have Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight is one title not to miss out on. The video game acts as a sequel to the Arkham City release, where the game picks up 1 year following the previous title events. The story features previous Batman enemies, as well as the new one called Arkham Knight. The gameplay is all about advanced melee combat, and the fights feel super intense and brawly, with awesome combos and takedowns that keep things exciting. Let's not forget about the Batmobile, which is a great way to get around the city next to the gliding and using various available gadgets. It's quite baffling to think that nearly 10 years have passed since the original launch of the game. Yet it still looks incredible. It certainly looks, plays, and tells a much better story than Rocksteady Studios' last outing, Kill the Justice League. And next at number 9 is Resident Evil 4 Remake. There were many reasons that fans were excited about the Resident Evil 4 Remake on modern systems, but one of the biggest was the presentation. When the game first arrived on previous generations, it had a very campy feel to it that worked in the game's favor and helped it endure in fans' minds. But with the remake, things have been given a more serious tone and feel, to the extent that the monsters and dangers you face will be less campy and more grim. Anyway, you'll be able to enjoy seeing Leon S. Kennedy back in action and attempting to take down the monsters that fill up a small Spanish town. You can use various weapons in Leon's arsenal to defeat these monsters and figure out the darker conspiracy happening here. Numerous upgrades in this remake help it stand out from past ones, including how the gameplay has been ramped up to make it more of a challenge. And it's easily one of the best remakes Capcom has done so far. Next, over at number 8, we have The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. The Legend of Zelda is a franchise we probably don't need to explain. The incredibly popular series has been around since the Nintendo and continues to thrive today. When it comes to big titles, few can match up to Tears of the Kingdom, and for numerous reasons. With new areas to explore and a new take on a familiar foe to defeat. Once again, Link will have numerous weapons he can pick up on the go to fight off hordes of monsters. Now you can turn arrows into bombs or use certain jellies to freeze enemies solid, and that's just the beginning of the possibilities in this game. You can also build all sorts of vehicles and items within the game, including ones that medieval people likely wish they could have made in their time. If you're going into this game to enjoy the action, you'll have plenty to satisfy you. Moving on to number 7, we have Ghost of Tsushima. While Sucker Punch Studios briefly disappeared after the release of infamous Second Son and infamous First Light, they came back with a bang when they released Ghost of Tsushima. And they managed to create a game with the most smooth and satisfying samurai combat known to man in 2020. This game is set in a gorgeous world based on a real area of Japan, and players are tasked with taking on the invading Mongols as one of the last samurai. There are specific titles that come around that blow people away with the incredible detail that is put into them. Ghost of Tsushima is absolutely one of those titles. Many consider this as one of the best games ever, so make sure to check it out. Let's move on to number 4 and talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Two of CD Projekt Red's games have made our list, and it's no surprise. After a lengthy development, Cyberpunk 2077 simply had to be massive, and it certainly is, especially with the addition of the Phantom Liberty DLC and the latest updates that introduce new vehicles among other things. I know this game didn't get off to the best start, but following these major updates, the game has come on leaps and bounds, and now warrants its titanic runtime. While its main story missions don't run quite as long as other games on the list, there's a huge amount of side content to dive into across Night City that'll keep you busy for hours on end. We'd estimate it taking you anywhere between 60 to 100 hours, depending on how much of that side content you dive into. And those who'd like to explore every nook and cranny of Night City should prepare for over 100 hours of playtime. Down at number 5, we have God of War. This game was a total game changer in the action-adventure genre and won the 2018 Game of the Year title. It took the God of War series to a whole new level. You follow the journey of Kratos, the legendary Spartan warrior, as he explores this big world with his son. The game has amazing visuals and a deeply emotional story that explores themes of fatherhood and redemption. And my favorite part is using Kratos' main weapon, Leviathan Axe. You can throw it at enemies and magically summoned back to hand. The battle system is pure gold with some of the coolest and most brutal action you'll ever see in a game. Anyway, if you're a fan of action-packed gameplay and gripping storytelling, you won't want to miss out on this game. And next at number 6, we have Horizon Zero Dawn. Whether you play this on the PlayStation or PC, Horizon Zero Dawn is easily one of the best games of the last several years. And this game had everyone talking when it was first announced. A lot of players weren't too happy about Horizon Zero Dawn getting a remaster so soon. But on the flip side, if you hadn't played it yet, this was the perfect chance to jump in with an even better looking version. And Forbidden West is the recently released sequel to the first game that follows the same formula but expands on it greatly. Thankfully, with the arrival of Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition on PC, you can experience Aloy's entire journey from the very beginning. This series has quickly become one of the best new franchises of this generation. And now, you've got the perfect chance to see why. So if you haven't jumped in yet, there's no better time to start. Let's move on to number 3 and talk about Black Myth Wukong. There's a reason why many people can't get enough of this game, and why it's sold so many copies in a short period of time. While it may not be the deepest game ever, it's one that does what it intended to do very well. Anyway, it is a hack-and-slash style experience based on Chinese mythology that would let the player have fun while being the legendary Monkey King. The combat is really fun with your staff and magical abilities. It's not the most complex, but the game is still challenging and fun to play. Also, the graphics are absolutely stunning, all thanks to the power of Unreal Engine 5. It was like really hyped up before release, and we're happy to see that it actually lived up to all that excitement. Moving on to number 2, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 blew the world away back when it was released in 2015, and it still remains a classic that many people come back to time and time again. The previous 2 games were by no means unsuccessful, but did not gather as much attention as this third installment. And the game kept getting better with time as CD Projekt Red added a number of DLC packs and a free next-gen update for the game. Masterful storytelling aside, this game's maps and environments are truly amazing. Filled with monsters, lots of places to explore, and tons of side quests that are as rich and engaging as the main story. With all this fun combat systems, unique weapon customization, insane amount of replayability, and engaging stories, this game is widely acknowledged as being a masterpiece of gaming. And the popularity of this game inspired the Netflix series of the same name. Finally, at number 1, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is, simply put, a pure masterpiece. Rockstar has received criticism for constantly re-releasing GTA 5 and for not making new games in recent years. But when the studio does release a new game, it goes all in. This particular title takes place prior to the events of the first Red Dead Redemption title, where players are taking on the role of Arthur Morgan, a member of an infamous gang who is on the run from the law. This game has one of the most detailed and well-thought-out open-world settings in the gaming history. Outside of having plenty of missions and characters to meet, there are random events that can occur, exploration, and hunting. Many players call it one of the best games ever, with lots of reasons to play again, and many mysteries to discover even years after its release. Besides the games I talked about in this video, there are a few more games I'd like to recommend. These games are quite popular, but just in case you haven't heard of them, which I highly doubt. They are Marvel's Spider-Man, Baldur's Gate 3, Hogwarts Legacy, Dark Souls 3, and last we have Elden Ring. Of course, there are so many other games, though, that we couldn't squeeze on this list. So I'd love to hear your choices down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video.